Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from July 21st, 2023. I'm recording this on January 19th, 2024. As always, I give you those dates so you know when this video is actually most relevant, because the market is always moving and changing, as we will see when we look at these changes in values over just a 6-month period. As always, also, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. And yes, once again, I'm still upstairs when I'm recording this. Just the timing worked out easier for me to just stay up here. So what are we doing here? We're looking back at the hot comics from 6 months ago to see what factors made them hot back then, what trends have affected them since, how have they responded in the market. Would you have been better off being patient when a book gets hot? Would you have been okay buying it in the moment? And we're going to see what we can learn from those. We've been doing this now for this video, I think, does officially take us past the 5-year mark doing this. So thank you all for staying with me for this long. And yeah, let's see what we can learn. We got 20 books this week, so it's going to take a minute. First up, we got Something is Killing the Children, #1, the Andrew Curry pen and ink SDCC variant, both the red and the silver foil like teeth on this one. We're going for about the same price, $75 back then. They're going for about the same price now, $18 to $30, 9.8, only one sale, but it was only a $50 sale. So yeah, this SDCC variant did not do well. It is definitely a dumpster fire, and it's definitely backed up significantly, which is, as we'll see here, actually, we got a bunch of SDCC variants this week that were on the CBSI list. And you'll see, for the most part, they follow a pattern. A couple of them don't, though. But next, we have Invincible #1, the Greg Capullo SDCC variant. Obviously, another reprint of a #1 with a variant cover for the con. The color version of this was going for $80 and $90 back then. The black and white was going for $1 to $135. Now raw copy will cost you $60 to $80 of the color, although there was a single sale that was like $120, but clearly an outlier from multiple sales that were in the $60 to $80 range. 9.8 on that one will cost you $180 to $200. So that one's down and I'll be back kind of thing. No raw sales on the black and white version, but of the 9.8 ones, only going for $70 to $100. So the black and white's actually going for less. That's definitely a trap, actually a dumpster fire, because the 9.8 is going for less than the raw copy was going for back then. But most of the sales here are on the color, so we'll stick with that and call it a down, and I'll be back. But yeah, did not do, the black and white version of this did not do well. Next, we have Transformers #1, the SDCC Ash Can variant, with what appears to be Marty McFly on the cover. This one back then, this was clearly the hot cover of SDCC. As we'll see in coming weeks when we talk about it, was the one that sustained the longest on the list. Back then it was going for $80 right off the bat, so it wasn't necessarily the week of the cover that was going for the most. But now it's still a $125 to $160 cover, so it's up from that first week. 9.8, only 9.8 sales for Signature Series. They were all $250 to $300. So yeah, from that first week, if you got on this early, you did really well. It's up in straight cash. We will see as we look at later weeks when it comes, as it comes back around the next couple of weeks, because this one does stay for a while, I believe. Next, we have Void Rivals #1, the Daniel Warren Johnson SDCC variant. This one was also going for $80 to $90. Very similar kind of cover, although no Marty. Back then, raw copies were going for $80 to $90, so right in that same range. Now this one, though, is also going for $135 to $150. 9.8, $185 to $200. So this is pretty rare that we had two con variants from the same con that actually kind of took off and sustained. We got some more con variants we're going to talk about here in a minute, but usually you get one at the most. We got two here that are both up in straight cash, although they're very related, very similar covers, related to the same series, the same thing. So I think that's part of just the love for this new Transformers run, the love for this new Energon universe, I think is what managed both of these to do as well as they've done. Next, we have Spawn #1, the 2023 3 reprint Puppeteer Lee San Diego Comic-Con variant. This one was going for $100 right out of the gate, and now it's actually performing pretty well. It's still 75 to 95, 9.8, 190. So just an I'll be back. It's taken a bit of a step back from what it was back then, but that's actually pretty good performance, similar to the Invincible color for a con variant. So this overall, San Diego last year seems to have done better than typical, although we're going to get back into more typical response to these as we move through the rest of these San Diego Comic-Con covers. So next we have Batman versus Spawn #1, the SDCC toy variant, so McFarlane toy variant. Back then, the red foil title was going for 50 to 70. The gold foil you see here was going for 100 plus. Now the red foil is a $15 to $30 book. The gold foil is going for 90, but that's only one sale of the gold foil here to compare to. So yeah, red foil is definitely a dumpster fire, down. Technically, you call the gold foil and I'll be back, but it's really not selling. So it's probably actually closer to a trap, but the one sale was an I'll be back, so we'll keep it there. But yeah, but we're seeing definitely a bigger step back here than what we've seen on some of these others. Next, we have, we got 3 more SDCC variants. We got the Mandalorian #1, the Adi Granov Limit 700 variant. This one was going for 100 to 125 back then, and now it is a $15 to $30 book. 9.8 going for 100. Yeah, that's a dumpster fire. This particular comic or cover of the Mandalorian and Grogu did not hold up at all. Yeah, took a very dramatic step back, which is more typical for con variants, really. Next, we have the Mandalorian #1 Peach Momoko SDCC sketch variant, also limited to 700. This one was 150 out the gate, so probably our biggest book in the moment of the week, going for the highest value. And now it's a $30 to $50 book. 9.8, only signature series sold recently, 130 to 150. But this is another dumpster fire, taking huge steps back here. So this was in the moment you would have said, week of, you'd said, oh, this is going to be the big book. It is not. It has taken a huge step back. So really, we had a couple that sustained pretty well, and the Invincible and the first Spawn book, and the 2 Void Rivals Transformers books that went up. But for the most part, we're getting the dumpster fires otherwise, and that's pretty typical. But our last SDCC variant is Amazing Spider-Man #25, the J. Scott Campbell variant. This one was going for 1 to 120 out the gate, and it's actually doing pretty well as well. 80 to 100 now, 9.8, 115 to 175 for the raw version, unsigned versions, I should say. For the signed version, raw copies will cost you about 150, 9.8, 230. So overall, we're going to call this steady and worth it. I went on to include the signed ones because about half the sales are signed ones. And of course, he was there, so he signed a ton of them, which is very typical for him when he puts out these kind of con variants. If he's there, most of them are actually, sometimes more of them have signatures than don't. All right, so that's the end of the SDCC. And actually was, despite the fact that we had, 4 dumpster fires out of those 9 books, that's a really good performance for a set of con variants like that. All right, we're going to move into next. We got Deadpool news that caused the next book to hit the list. This is Marvel Comics Presents #95 on the list for the second week in a row. The origin of Wolverine's yellow suit. Of course, this had to do with the set photo showing Hugh Jackman in the yellow suit. Back then, this was a $30 to $40 book. Now it's a $1 to $15 book. 9.8 going for 80. So yeah, that's a dumpster fire. We're still going to get this movie, but probably not going to get the origin of the yellow suit. And it's the origin of a suit. I don't know why people were paying $30 to $40 for this. All right, so that is the end of the CBSI list for that week. Tom's list, because he was at San Diego Comic-Con, came out late, so I did not do a cash or trash that week. So I don't have any predictions for these last 10 books. They were 10 completely different books. He did not include any of the con variants. So we're going to go through these, so you won't see predictions for these, and that's why these are a little different order than typically would get for me. But we're going to stick with Deadpool, Wolverine #1 from 1988, first ongoing series for Wolverine. Again, this was hitting the list because of the teaser photo. Back then, raw copies were sitting at 100, 9.8, 3 to 370. Now it's a $25 to $125 book on the raw side, which is pretty typical for where this book sits. I mean, it had jumped up a little bit back then, but not much. 9.8, 2 to 350. So a little overlap on the lower end. Overall, we're going to call this a down end. I'll be back. The book really just kind of went back to what it normally is. So it didn't take a huge step forward, but the little step forward, it kind of just gave back and went back to what it was. Next, we have Deadpool, Merc with a Mouth, number 7, the first appearance of Lady Deadpool. This was all about the Taylor Swift rumors. This was before the Dazzler rumors. This was the rumors that she was going to be Lady Deadpool, that we're going to get alternate versions of Deadpool, and that she was going to be Lady Deadpool, and that's what was driving this book. Back then, raw copies were $85, 9.8 going for $230. Now, raw copies are $60 to $120, 9.8, $325 to $375. So this has continued to chug along. Both this and the Dazzler rumors, people were convinced she's going to be in the movie. So they are paying big money for both of those books. This one included. So this is up at straight cash over the 6 months. If you were interested in this book, I would definitely, even if she plays Lady Deadpool, I guess this will be more affordable later after the movie comes and goes, but we'll see. Next, we have Prelude to Deadpool Corp. Number 1, first appearance of Dogpool. So this was rumors that we were going to get Dogpool. People were jumping on this. $10 back then. Now it's a $10 to $30 book. 9.8 went for $400, but that was only one sale recently. And we've actually gotten photos now of Dogpool. So we know we're getting Dogpool. So that's why this book has continued to increase. Or did increase over the 6-month period. We'll see what it does as it goes forward. If it's anything like the Lucky the Pizza Dog, or what was the other dog? I forget. Another dog that's appeared in these kind of things that got a good Cosmo. Those books jumped up and then have dropped back down. My guess is that's what will happen here, but we'll see. Next, we have Metamorpho number 1. So we're moving away from the Deadpool stuff. We're moving into some DCU stuff, and this hit the list because we got casting news on Metamorpho for the Superman movie, or just the new DC universe. I don't know if he's going to be in that movie or just the DC universe overall. This is his first solo series from 1965. Because I didn't do this, I'm going off of Tom's average. I gave the average of $150 for sales. Usually when they do an average on an older book like this, they're including all slabs and raws and everything, which usually skews these numbers high. Raw copies right now are 10 to 50, so that's a dumpster fire from that average of 150. So if you use that 150 to guide your purchasing, it's a dumpster fire because it's a $10 to $50 book for raw copies right now, recently on eBay. Obviously, if you got a really, really high grade one, it might be a little more than that, but given the grade range it's been selling, $10 to $50. Next, we have The Spectre, number 54, the first appearance of the second Mr. Terrific. Also got casting news here, I believe, was what caused this. Raw copies were going for $50. 9.8 hit 1,000. Now, raw copies are 30 to 90, with most of the sales kind of in that $50, $60, $70 range, but definitely a wide range on sales here. 9.8, 425, but only one sale. So obviously, dumpster fire, trap/dumpster fire range for the 9.8 value, but there's so few sales there. We're going to go with the down, and I'll be back based on the actual raw copy value. So, all right. Next, we got a little bit of Comic Buzz, our one Comic Buzz book of the week. And that was Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, number 2. The first appearance of Marchion Ro. And really, this was about hitting the list because Phase 3 was coming, which meant all the characters from Phase 1 of the High Republic were coming back. We knew that Marchion Ro was getting his own book. That was what was causing this hit the list. Raw copies back then jumped up to $20. 9.8s, though, were still sitting around $50, which is where they'd been for a really long time. 9.8s are still sitting $50, $60, which is basically where this book is sat now for a year and a half. But raw copies now are 5 to 10, back kind of where they've sat for the most part during this, except when there's been a little bit of news. So another down, and I'll be back. Book that would have been worth being patient on. All right, next. We're going to jump back into covers, but not SDC covers now. This was from the Tom list. Incredible Hulk number 181, the facsimile foil edition. So the foil version of the facsimile that came out last year. Raw copies of it, we're going for $13 back there on average. Now it's a $5 to $12 book on the raw side, 9.8, 50 to 65. So down, and I'll be back to the second appearance of Wolverine, first cover appearance of Wolverine. Yeah, so this book is definitely taking a little bit of a step back, but still doing pretty well for a foil reprint. I mean, the fact that it has even this kind of value for foil, for a reprint and with a foil cover, is pretty good. Next, we have Ghost Rider number 15, the first glow-in-the-dark cover here from 1991. Raw copies, we're going for $3. So why did this hit the list? Hit the list because the 9.9 went for $800. So that was kind of a big deal, all-time high. And actual 9.9 of this cover went for big money. Now raw copies are $2 to $15, really just because of shipping and that kind of stuff. 9.8 only cost you $75. No recent 9.9 sales to compare directly to, because they literally put it on the list and they said because of the 9.9 sale. But looking at the other sales, it's basically been kind of steady worth it during this 6-month period at other grades. So that's where we're going to leave it. All right, 2 books left, which is usually in our first category we talk about, but this is other outside DC and Marvel movie news. This is Gargoyles number 1. First appearance of the Gargoyles in comics, and this was hitting the list because a director was announced for the movie. I think this is going to be a live-action movie, if I remember correctly. Back then, raw copies were averaging $115. 9.8 was going for $250. Now it's a $15 to $70 book. 9.8, so we're still sitting in that $200 to $300 range. So overall, we're going to call this a down, and I'll be back because of the raw sales are definitely have taken a step back, but still doing pretty good. I know this is, a lot of people love this series, love this cartoon. I was just old enough that it really has no memory or recollection for me. But all right, and then our last book this week is Conan the Barbarian, number 23, first appearance of Red Sonja. And this hit the list because the trailer for the movie dropped at San Diego Comic-Con, and it's been crickets since. Trailer has not been released to the public unless I missed it completely. And yeah, I really haven't even heard any news about this movie since. So kind of makes you worried about whether or not this is actually going to happen, despite the fact that they have a trailer. But we'll see. Maybe they're just delayed with all the strikes and everything. It's just been delayed. But back then, another one, an older book where Tom was given averages. So it's hard. You got to take those averages with a grain of salt. And of course, because I didn't include them in my cash or trash, I wasn't able to look up what the raws were actually going for, but average was $345, probably means nothing. 9.8 though went for $43.20, which is a pretty good value for this book on a 9.8. Now it's a $50 to $200 book raw, so we won't really judge it based on that. But 9.8s are now, the most recent 9.8 sales have all been $2,500, $2,600, and it's multiple sales. So yeah, we're going to call this a trap. It's basically cut almost in half from what it was just 6 months ago on a 9.8 of this book. So that is this week's list. 20 books I just got through of. I'm going to need to drink water. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time. Later.